I keep thinking that rock bottom is here for the 49ers in 2024. And then they just continue to faceplant. It's honestly kind of impressive.
So to me, rock bottom was like Green Bay, Buffalo, like those 2 weeks. There wasn't really
Sure.
anything that, I mean, for me, there wasn't really anything that was going to happen today in Miami that was going to make me feel any certain, or to make me feel any
I
different than I already felt.
I thought they would come out after the Devondre Campbell thing and like put together a really, really good effort, and it kind of looked like they quit. They looked disinterested today, except for Deebo Samuel. Salute to Deebo Samuel. He was freaking awesome. But I didn't think anybody else. It felt like from the jump they were flat, and again, it doesn't matter. They were eliminated from the playoffs with the Commanders win over the Eagles, so it's not like and their postseason odds were a long shot anyway. But the fact that they came out and just were as bad as they were today, undisciplined, pre-snap penalties, post-snap penalties, turnovers, missed field goal, just all the same stuff that we've seen all year. I guess I shouldn't be disappointed by that by now, but I was expecting a better performance today. One where we kind of came away from it like, wow, see, they do still have that in their bag, and they didn't. They got their asses whooped.
Yeah. The pre-snap penalties I thought were the most alarming thing from that standpoint. Like, even Ricky Pearsall, his rookie year, he has to know where to line up.
Yeah,
You know,
that's bad.
I thought the officiating wasn't particularly good. I thought there were a lot of ticky-tack calls, but still, like five pre-snap penalties, that's not on the officiating.
Mm-hmm.
The 11 penalties for 90 yards, like maybe one or two of those were what we would call soft penalties, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it was undisciplined, but at the same time, like, it's not necessary when you're missing Trent Williams and you have Spencer Burford playing left tackle by the end of the game. Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Moore isn't really any more than a backup level player.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Aaron Banks goes down. You have to play Spencer Burford at left tackle. Like, I just
Their problems started
my
way before that, though, for me.
no, for sure. And I think it their problems that they had today for me rely or fall so much on the offensive line, which has felt like it's needed upgrades. Really,
I
going
agree.
going back into the offseason and the pre-draft stuff we did talking about how much they needed to upgrade the center spot. It
Mm-hmm.
just feels like that gets reinforced every week that they need like a capable veteran center. Because when the
Mm-hmm.
49ers have been successful, it's been Alex Mack, it's been,
Weston
even
Richburg.
Weston Rich for a certain spell. Like, so yeah, I mean, today exemplified a lot of the things that we've been seeing all season and exemplified the improvements they need to make. They need to be more disciplined. The offensive penalties, particularly pre-snap penalties, the offensive line needs to be better in
Mm-hmm.
just about every facet. And I think that has to do with talent, like more than anything else. But yeah, man. I mean, I guess it was encouraging to see, Debo have what we would call a vintage Debo game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it necessarily changes a whole lot from how I view the possibility of him coming back next year. Like, maybe Debo does that for 2 more weeks and then you feel better about bringing him back next year.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like, he doesn't look like the same player. Like,
No.
even, this was probably his best game of the season. I haven't gone back and done the game by game, but I think this is probably the best he's looked in a long time, given, he averaged 5 yards a carry also, which
Mm-hmm.
is a huge jump for him, even on unlimited volume. But no, I mean, the Niners lost, and at this point, losses for them are a good thing. They need to get the best draft pick that they can get. And that's not to
Yeah.
say that, like, what happened to Miami was good today by any stretch, but they need to get the best draft pick they can, because they need an offensive lineman. They need, potentially a receiver. They definitely need defensive linemen. Tony Romo was talking about it throughout the game. Like, they are getting pushed back off the line of scrimmage far too much throughout the season, and it is what it is. The Niners aren't going to be a contending team if they're not dominating along the defensive front.
Yeah, that's I think the big takeaway for me from the entire year. I think they'll be healthier next year. At least I would
You would hope so.
assume that for the most part, right? And I think if they're healthier, like this just kind of all looks different offensively, defensively. There'll be some tweaks Shanahan has to make offensively, and it'll be year 2 of Sorensen as the defensive coordinator, I imagine. So like you figure things would trend toward getting a little bit better, but to me, the big takeaway from this year is what you were just talking about on the offensive line. Their team building philosophy of punt that to the back burner and see if you can build out 5 starting caliber offensive linemen. That's just clearly not working. They signed Jake Brendel to a 4-year contract because they went, oh, hey, here's just a starting center. Is he good? Meh. Nobody can start. And it's just that I think you can get away with that at maybe one position. 2 if you're elite at 3 other ones. But it's Trent Williams, and then we see how badly the 49ers offensive line has gotten exposed since he's been out. Like, Jalen Moore's done an okay job. This isn't an anti-Jalen Moore thing, but he's not Trent Williams. And Aaron Banks has regressed, and Jake Brendel has regressed, and Dominic Pooney's been fine. He's in year 1. And Colton McKivitz is just an okay right tackle. So to me, I don't think they can continue moving forward with the philosophy of the offensive line ostensibly doesn't matter in relation to just having playmakers. I can't. If you're building a team from scratch, if you're starting at ground zero like they did in 2017, I maybe get it. If you can go find a Deebo Samuel and a George Kittle and a Christian McCaffrey and a Brandon Ayuk, okay, like that's fine. But at some point, you need to prioritize the trenches. And it just feels like they've had so many games this year where they've just gotten worked up front. And I think so many of the issues they had scoring in the red zone is because their offensive line wasn't good enough. And so many of their issues in the run game was because their offensive line wasn't good enough. And that to me isn't fixed through, hey, let's bring in Brandon Parker and draft who's the dude that's on the Michigan guy who's on the practice squad right now. Like, that's not good enough. And it hasn't been good enough. And I think that's the big takeaway for me from this year is you look at the really good teams around the league, specifically in the NFC, with the Eagles and the Lions, and then you go look at the Chiefs who have a really good interior offensive line. They've invested in those spots in ways the 49ers haven't, and those teams continue to have sustained success, whereas the 49ers, it feels like a little bit of a house of cards when it comes to their offensive line.
Yeah, I think so. A couple points. I do think they need to improve the offensive line pretty dramatically. And one of the things you look at throughout the league like say you look at a quarterback situation, say Jared Goff. So you're not a big Jared Goff guy, right? Mm-hmm. Like you were like, I don't think Jared Goff's very good. Well, a lot of NFL quarterbacks, Jared Goff included, and I think he typifies this more than anybody else. You put a okay NFL quarterback behind an elite offensive line, then all of a sudden that okay quarterback is going to look great, right? Like point. Jared Goff is going to have a type of season where he's going to be in rhythm all the time. He's going to put up MVP type numbers. And obviously the Lions have a ton of weapons. That's obviously a big part of it. But the other part of it is the fact that the Lions have a dominant offensive line. And it's unique, right? That, like, I feel like there are only a handful of good offensive lines throughout the league. And there's a big imbalance between overall talent along offensive lines throughout the league and defensive lines. But I think an offensive line raises the ceiling for your quarterback, or raises the floor for your quarterback in a really, really substantial way. Because if you can dominate up front, you can often be ahead of the sticks. You can have a higher success rate in terms of, being in third and shorts instead of third and longs. If you have a good offensive line, you're not going to have nearly as many holding penalties, right? If you have a disciplined offensive line, you're not going to have nearly as many false starts and illegal formations, and all of that stuff raises the floor for your offense. And I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in the front office do need to reevaluate the way they handle the offensive line because they need to raise the floor. and be able to keep themselves in games if your skill position guys are going to get hurt. Like I think that's something that they have to look at. But I think what we talk about with the offensive line also applies to the defensive line. Like if I'm looking at this offseason even more broadly, I would say the Niners need to be better in the trenches on both sides. And it's not even necessarily about sack numbers and, pressure rates and all that. It's about run defense. And, the Niners, they had the stat during the game today. The Niners, I think it was 20 rushing touchdowns allowed, and it was tied for the second most in the league. Like, that's a problem, right? Like that's a problem, and that's something that feels like it's correctable with just more talent along the defensive line. And I get you lost Javon Hargrave early in the season, but the Niners have shown that when they are a contending team, they are dominant along the defensive line. And really the only quote unquote dominant player they have along the defensive line right now is Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa didn't look anything like 100% Nick Bosa today while he's playing through the core muscle stuff.
Yeah, no, he looked like a shell.
So, I think the Niners need to make a concerted effort to get better in the trenches on both sides. And, we'll have plenty of time to talk about the draft, but man, like I'm kind of the mind, like you're picking, in the 12 to 18 range or whatever it's going to end up being, you got to take either the best offensive lineman or the best defensive lineman on the board, in my opinion, sort of regardless of position, because like I said, Eric Armstead was in that range, right? If you can get like a defensive tackle who you feel really good about and not Javon Kinlaw, right? A defensive tackle that you think is going to be a reliable guy that you could potentially sign to a second contract, then I think that could be huge for them. If you can get a dominant sort of all pro type, Pro Bowl type talent along the defensive line, that would be huge for this team. And if you get Javon Hargrave back on a cheaper contract, then, all of a sudden, maybe it looks better. Or even an edge guy, same thing. And the same thing applies to a tackle. I probably wouldn't take a guard or a center there, obviously, but a tackle, an offensive tackle or somebody along the defensive line, I think it has to be the 49ers priority in the first round.
So I get, and I don't want to dive into, I've done exactly zero preparation for next year's draft. So I don't want to get super far into this, obviously, but I haven't dusted off the clicker yet, but you say like, I wouldn't take a center or guard there, but honestly, if there's a center or guard there that you think is going to start for your team for 15 years and make Pro Bowls, just do it.
I mean, he better be like Quentin Nelson if I'm taking him,
Yeah, right.
Everything the 49ers need.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is I think if there's a player that they think, and again, draft is a crapshoot, you don't totally know, but if there's a player at center or guard that they think is going to be a Pro Bowler, then you just have to go get that player, and that goes for both sides of the line to me. Yeah, I just, like you said, position on the defensive line matters a lot less, but I think you're looking to upgrade at 4 offensive line spots right now. I guess 3. Pony's fine. But you're probably looking to upgrade at 3 offensive line spots right now, and I don't think you can be picky about the way you do it. It's such a vital thing, because again, we're talking about like contending next year. It's not draft and develop some player at 15. Like, no, if there's somebody who can start right away and you think he's a Pro Bowl caliber player, like plug him in. Like that's yeah. Well, and
even beyond just the scope of like next season and where they need to improve next season, they need a long-term answer beyond Trent Williams.
Yep.
So whether that if that's somebody that maybe you lose Aaron Banks in free agency, if that's somebody that comes in and plays left guard next year if Trent Williams is back, and then you push him out to left tackle, or he plays right tackle, and then in a year or two he moves out to left tackle. Like that totally makes sense to me, but that's just it seems like just a very interesting thing. Just like, you need to win up front. Like it's, I think if anything is clear with Brock Purdy, and aside from, obviously the need for weapons and the foundation of the offense and all that stuff, I think with Brock Purdy going forward, you need to operate as if you need to win the line of scrimmage. Like you're not going to win a ton of games, or you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy as your quarterback if you're constantly losing the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. And I think that's
just what it is.
I think that's part of the reason. So, like, it felt like the 49ers and Dolphins were playing a different sport on offense today. The Dolphins were doing so much cool shit with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane in the game together and doing that orbit motion behind the quarterback and inside handoffs and fake tosses and fake screens. It looked like so much freaking fun. And they averaged 5.8 yards per carry. And I think part of the reason you can do that is if you have an offensive line that can hold up and block for that long. And I think that's part of the reason we've seen so much of the 49ers passing game turn into just like drop back game and why they've gone away from play action, because like you can't let Purdy turn his back to the defense because he might get popped by a defensive lineman that made his way through. I really think that's a little bit of the reason we've seen so much of the creativity on that side of the ball die down, is just because they can't do anything. They can't run anything that's long developing.
Yeah, that's true. I did think they ran a lot of interesting screens today.
They did. That was fun.
Maybe it was just because they were down to Patrick Taylor as their primary running back. Yeah, Brock Purdy and Debo were the two leading rushers at 26 and 25 yards, and Patrick Taylor had 24 yards on 8 carries.
Can I say something about Debo real quick?
Sure.
Because that was, I think we were both pretty hard on him. A lot of people were very hard on him. He was awesome today.
He was great.
Of all the games to break out and show that he still has that in his bag. Not sure why it was this one, but he had obviously a really bad week 15, and then to bounce back like he did today. Just credit where it's due. If we're gonna drag a guy when he's not playing well, gotta salute him when he does. He was looked more like old Debo today than he has at any point this year.
Yeah, he looked awesome. He broke a bunch of tackles. Without looking at the PFF numbers, I'm sure that was the most broke tackles he's had all season. Yeah, great game. But again, like, can you string it together? Like, it means a lot more for Deebo Samuel to like string multiple games like that together than to just have one.
Yeah.
Right. To just have one and then, not be productive next Monday against Detroit. And then if he plays at Arizona the finale of the season, like, I would probably need to see more than just one good game from Debo before I'm like really changing the way I view him in the offseason. Like, it still seems like it's $16 million and you can save $10 million cap dollars. I know you have the dead cap hit, but that's a sunk cost already.
Mm-hmm.
I would need to see Debo finish on a high note beyond just one good game before I'm like, all right, let's for sure bring him back, because the cap savings to me makes a whole lot more sense in this moment, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, man. I guess I don't think he's back next year, but maybe they can trade him.
I don't either. Yeah. I would be surprised if, okay. Couch it like this. I think the only scenario Deebo Samuel's back is if they sign him to a multiple year contract that is actually cheaper. Like if I only see Deebo coming back if they rework his contract. I don't see Deebo coming back on that number.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Luis in the chat brings up a great point. I want to talk about this. That first drive, that punt on the first drive was embarrassing. Like, you're out of the playoffs. And you have 4th and inches. First of all, I thought Patrick Taylor got the first down. No challenge. Okay, fine. It's early in the game. You don't want to use a challenge. But you're also near midfield, and you're just going to punt on 4th and inches? You can't get a couple of feet? That's embarrassing. That's so bad. It's so bad.
I thought initially it was a thing like, well, we don't want Brock to like be taking unnecessary hits. Like, we don't need to sneak him. He had the concussion last year off the quarterback.
Then don't play him
in Minnesota. Well, right, but then you run the quarterback sneak later.
Right.
All right, so
hand it off, run a bootleg, do something. I mean, not punting there. Again, it's not why they lost. It's not like Kyle Shanahan's game management just continues to be mystifying. I just don't get it.
It wasn't the most egregious thing in the world to me, but yeah, I'm with you. They should have gone for it.
Yeah, man.
You don't have anything to lose. You're eliminated from playoffs. Kyle Shanahan told reporters after the game that he didn't know they were eliminated from the playoffs until after the game. I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're a head coach, you're running a team. If you're eliminated from playoff contention, you have to make decisions on like whether to play players, and all of that stuff. Like I feel like it's Kyle Shanahan's responsibility to know if he's eliminated from the playoffs before that game starts.
I would agree.
And even if it wasn't like he knew before the game, he would have had to know at halftime.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any world in which Kyle Shanahan didn't know. So I get why he would say he didn't know, but
sure. I imagine he did.
Yeah, but I don't think you tank. I don't think you tank the rest of the way for the same reason we talked about leading into this game.
They don't need to.
I don't tank, but I'm like, hey, Nick Bosa, get healthy. Hey, Trent Williams, get healthy. Debo, I mean, if you really want to play, you go ahead and play because you might be a free agent in a few months. But like George Kittle, do you want to chill? Like, go ahead and chill. I would kind of leave it up to the players, honestly. Like, and I wouldn't blame any players if they were like, yeah, we've been on like a bunch of deep playoff runs. We could use the extra time to get ready for the offseason to come back healthy.
I think we talked about this on the preview show, but to me, if you're healthy, after the whole Devondre Campbell thing, you can't go sit. If you're capable of suiting up and playing at this point, you have to.
What's healthy? What's the percentage point you have to
George
feel
Kittle has not been on an injury report since week freaking 8 or whatever it was.
Well, Fred Warner hasn't been on an injury report, but we know he's playing through a fractured ankle.
Sure. We don't, as far as I know, Kittle doesn't have anything like that. So if you're healthy or if you don't have anything like a fractured ankle, I think you have to go play.
Yeah. All I'm saying, like the core guys, if George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Debo, like if those guys are like, hey, I could use some time, I would not blame them at all. I'd be like, that's fine.
Yeah.
If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I would be like, all right, that's cool. Like let's try to get the best draft pick we can. Like, I wouldn't like call plays and like actively try to lose games, but if my star players were like working through stuff like Nick Bosa is, I'd be like, take a seat, man. Let's make sure that you're healthy and start the offseason program.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't hate that. Man, that was rough. Jake Moody's probably done.
Yeah, I mean,
I just can't. The Kyle Shanahan spike on the missed field goal is crazy.
Just spiking the tablet.
Yeah. I don't think he's long for this team.
If Justin Tucker gets released by the Ravens,
yes, 49er.
You're doing it?
Bet. Yeah, bet for sure.
They do like their veteran kickers.
Playoff tested. Yeah.
Even after his bad season, you think maybe it's just a change of scenery thing?
Yeah. Yeah, it gets him out of Baltimore, gets him to better weather in San Francisco, Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And fresh start.
I mean, he might be hurt.
Maybe. But I can't imagine going into next year and being like, yep, Jake Moody's a guy. They need to the offensive line philosophy and the special teams philosophy of that's just over there and it doesn't matter has to go away. Like we talk about Kyle Shanahan adapting his offense, he has to adapt his thought process on team building overall. Because special teams don't matter. It's mattered a lot, actually. You're losing games on the margins because they don't put in enough time or effort or energy into special teams. So I think that's something they have to fix too.
It's wild to me because Kyle Shanahan is so detail oriented on offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you talk to any of those players, it's like, yeah, at my rookie season, it was so difficult to learn all of the nuances of the offense. And it's all so detail oriented because Kyle Shanahan is so meticulous in what he wants from every single position on every single play.
Mm-hmm.
But that meticulousness and that need to be detail oriented does not apply to special teams, which is wild. Like,
It's insane.
could you imagine Bill Belichick being like, don't really care about special teams?
No, I couldn't imagine that.
Like, Bill Belichick had to have a left-footed punter at all times because he believed that it made life more difficult on punt returners because the ball would spin differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of the many details of Bill Belichick's fascination with special teams. And Kyle Shanahan's like, just don't screw us up.
Yeah, I don't. He has such a football player's mentality toward that area of the game, and that's it's killed them so many times this year that I can't imagine they just move forward the way they are.
Yeah,
and if they do, then it's going to continue to be a problem.
I think you can make a case that they've been kind of lucky to have so much talent on offense and defense that they have been able to have that mindset with special teams.
Yeah,
they're like, all right, we're just gonna pay Robbie Gold and have an expensive kicker.
Sure.
We'll draft a punter that we feel fine with, and then we're just going to be so loaded on offense and defense that the rest of special teams won't really matter.
Yeah,
it's well, when you're not nearly as loaded on offense and defense, then the special teams do matter, and when you're bad, then you're going to have a hard time winning some games that you need to win to get to the playoffs. That's kind of what happened.
Yep. Speaking of the penalties and rookie receivers and stuff, really liked that Ricky Pearsall got involved as much as he did today. Caught all 4 of his targets for 37 yards. But man, the pre-snap penalties are just that's tough. Two plays where he just needed to line up on the line of scrimmage and didn't.
Kind of felt like the game right there. I know Kyle Shanahan mentioned it afterwards. You have the Deebo Samuel play. You get down to the 2-yard line. You have that wiped out. Yep. And you have back-to-back illegal formation. And you miss the field goal to go from 1st and goal at the 2 to missing a field goal and not getting any points.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Brutal.
Yeah, but I am optimistic on what Ricky Pearsall can be long term.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Little practice time, so much shit he went through.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's earned the trust of the coaching staff to play because we know how difficult Kyle Shanahan can be on young players overall. The fact that he's just playing and the coaching staff feels okay with him and Brock Purdy feels confident enough in him to target him 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's positive for me. I know he's not been productive during this rookie season, but in terms of what you have with him going forward, I would be very surprised if he's not at minimum a decent starting receiver. And I'm sort of expecting him to be the next pretty good 49ers offensive player.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I wouldn't call him a bust or anything insane like that. You go look at his production.
Completely irrational.
Yeah, that's insane. AJ Jenkins was very clearly a bust in year 1, right? I don't think Ricky Pearsall is that. He's clearly a talented player. And I think if he can stay healthy for all of training camp next year, where he's in the offseason program starting in May, and he's with the team through OTAs and all the way through training camp, I think you'll see a pretty good player next year.
Yeah, agreed.
Man, what a gross game.
I thought Renardo Green had a decent game today.
Yeah, he was good. He's a good player.
I like what you saw. Yeah.
Yeah. Renardo Green, I think he can play. I think Malik Mustafa can play. I think Ricky Pearsall can play. And
Dominic Pooney
can play. Whether any of those guys are ever Pro Bowlers or anything, I have no idea. But I think it was a significant deal that the 49ers apparently found a few guys who can start.
Yeah.
And you got to supplement that with the high end players here at some point. You got to really hit a home run on a draft pick or 2. But for now, you feel okay if Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa are both starting in your secondary next year. And I think that's a pretty big win. And you feel good about Dominic Pooney playing on the offensive line, and you get 3 starters out of a draft. That's a nice little win. And then if Ricky Pearsall is your second or third receiver, most teams will take that. You have 4 contributors out of 1 draft.
Yeah. You get 4 starters out of a draft, that's a home run.
Yeah.
Even
absolutely.
if they're not superstars. Like,
yeah.
If you get multiple guys in one draft class that are signing second contracts with your team, that's a pretty substantial win. So
yeah,
it looks like that's where we're headed with this draft class. So maybe not any top of the market stars type players, but you never know.
But that's the thing, is they've kind of just been, it feels like they've been missing on guys like that just in general. Just really quality players to fill out the roster. Where they don't need to go rely on like Tayshaun Gibson and Logan Ryan in the secondary,
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Oh, Isaac Guerrero can play.
Yeah. Can he stay healthy?
I don't know, but I think he can play a little bit.
I think he can play too, but he had foot and hamstring injuries in college, and lo and behold, he had foot and hamstring injuries.
That's a significant red flag.
Yeah.
And then it's Jacob Cowing and Tatum Bethune, which don't know, but Paul in the chat asked, "Do they shake things up dramatically? Say calling the Jags about Trevor Lawrence?" No, I don't. No, nothing that dramatic.
Kyle Shanahan loves Brock Purdy.
Yes, correct.
We're at least a season away from Kyle Shanahan not loving Brock Purdy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If they're healthier next year and Brock continues kind of regressing and throwing bad interceptions in big spots and taking bad sacks, then sure. But right now, I think they're happy with Brock.
I don't even I would say his numbers certainly took a step back. I don't really feel like Brock Purdy regressed. Like, I feel like he had to do too much, and what we learned is that he's not capable of doing, like, trying to do too much. Does that make sense? Like, some guys, and you're like, all right, Josh Allen can go make the hero plays, right? Patrick Mahomes can go make the hero plays.
Sure.
Brock can still run an offense, I think, but he's obviously relying on weapons, but probably not the guy who's going to go make hero plays at the nearly the same level as those superstar players who are just simply more talented.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, Brock to me still a guy that probably top 10 money because it's when he's going to get paid. But
sure,
man, it would be really wild if coming out of this year they were like, "Yep, Brock Purdy, $60 million a year." I would be stunned if that happened.
Me too. But like you said, that's the way the market goes. Yeah. The when is more of the money is obviously part of the question, but the when is going to be interesting to me. Is it like something that gets done in February where they're just like, "Hey, week 18's over, let's hammer this out"? Or is this a thing they go, "Yeah, hey, here's an offer. What do you take 40? No, okay, all right, cool. See you in training camp." Because if that happens, then I have major questions for the front office.
So I think the best, I was thinking about this, the best thing for the 49ers and Brock Purdy, aside from like Brock Purdy making the most money possible, is the best thing for Brock Purdy. Like, I fully understand.
Right. Yeah.
The best thing for Brock Purdy from a outside perspective, a critic's perspective, a fan's perspective, is for Brock Purdy to take the contract where he's quote unquote leaving money on the table to help build the best roster around him. Mm-hmm. The best thing possible for the 49ers would be if they can get that deal done as soon as possible. So they can say, all right, our biggest contract of the offseason is done in January or February, well before the start of the new league year, well before the start of the offseason program. We have all of our ducks in a row. We are not going to have holdouts. Everybody's paid and happy. Now let's have a really good offseason as a team. Let's practice together. Let's all get on the same page. Let's all install everything that we're going to run so nobody's playing catch up. And let's like go kick somebody's ass week 1 like they did the Steelers in 2023.
Right.
Yeah, not this like, oh yeah, like we'll just get our guys in a week before the season starts and like we'll treat September like the preseason. Like, no, you can't operate like that anymore. You just can't. That's not where your team's at. from a perception standpoint, it would be huge for the 49ers to get Brock Purdy to take like the quote unquote team friendly deal so they can keep building around him. He can elevate himself. Fans love nothing more than a player who takes less money to say like, let's make the situation better. Let's try to win.
Yes.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes signed a $500 million contract and gets lauded for taking less money because he restructures the deal every year. And it's like, wow, look at Patrick Mahomes. What a teammate.
Well, it's what Tom Brady did to a certain extent, right? Like you can, like Jalen Brunson in New York, like completely different sport, but Jalen Brunson took like a very modest contract by NBA star standards, and he's one of the most beloved guys by his fan base in all of American sports because he's a baller, he's a leader, but also he took less money so they can have expensive teammates.
Again, not advocating Brock Purdy to do this, like get your money, get your bag, but if you're trying to get like a PR win, that would be
they could use a perception. They can use a perception win. Like they can use like, all right, the Niners had a dog shit offseason last year. We all knew it coming in. I wasn't necessarily convinced it was going to bleed into the regular season, but I think it pretty clearly did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in order to like avoid that, I don't know. Maybe Brock Purdy's camp. I'm sure Brock Purdy's agents are going to be like, all right, $65 million a year. Let's go. Like that's where we're, that's where this is headed. And it's like, that's fucking insane. But I don't know. Like I think Brock Purdy could win in the long run if he did the thing, because no matter what, even if Brock Purdy if Brock Purdy becomes the highest paid player or the highest paid quarterback in the league, or he's making $60 million a year and he stinks next year, then that's horrendous for him. If Brock Purdy takes less than, if he takes 45 instead of 55 or 60, then it's like, oh, well, it's a little bit more acceptable because Brock Purdy didn't push to be the highest paid quarterback. And you can, he tried to help out his team because, he needs to have weapons around him and he has all this self-awareness. Like that would be a PR win and a perception win, which I think would help. I don't know that that's necessarily important. I think it would be important from a salary cap perspective, but I just think like the perception of Brock Purdy nationally and the 49ers overall, it would be great if they could somehow figure out a way to get him at like quote unquote team friendly deal.
Yeah, especially if that team friendly deal, like let's say Debo plays really well here the next couple of weeks and that team friendly deal allows them to redo Samuel's deal and keep him, and Brandon Ayuk's coming back and Trent Williams coming back and Christian McCaffrey's like, we talked about the vibes in camp this year and just how it was kind of weird with all the injury stuff and the contract stuff and just like, they just got off on the wrong foot. That's a really good, easy way to get things off on the right foot. But
yeah, get it done in January, February before the league year starts. Win the shit out of that press conference in February, whenever you have it.
Yep.
Like
that would be
get everything going positively in the offseason.
That would just immediately turn things. The I hate the word narrative because it's overused and always used incorrectly. The perception of the 49ers moving forward, if that happened. Yeah. If they just like day after the Super Bowl, the Adam Schefter tweet comes out that Brock Purdy signed a 5-year, I can't do math, $247 million extension or whatever. Got it done early, focused on, retooling, and that would be the conversation instead of how disappointing this season has been.
Yeah.
Because yuck.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
We shall see. Love our guy Josh Williams getting the shot. They showed John Lynch in the luxury suite. Josh Williams sitting next to him. Josh has got a busy offseason ahead, but yeah, up and coming executive. Keep an eye out for Josh Williams. He's somebody we're going to hear from.
Word. Can I talk about Prize Picks real quick?
Absolutely.
Before we get out of here. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports, my very favorite way to consume sports. You can download the Prize Picks app today and use code Candlestick to receive $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Candlestick on the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Deebo Samuel went off this week. Salute to him. I had him less than 44.5 receiving yards. He finished with 96. He had 33 at halftime. So good for Deebo. Had a really awesome game today. That stat line would have looked better if not for the was it the first illegal formation penalty on Pearsall that after he got him down to the 2?
Yeah.
So he'd had over 100 if he has that catch too. So I had that one wrong, but thanks to the flex play, which Prize Picks provides, where your whole entry doesn't have to be correct to win some money. I had Brock Purdy more than 32 passing attempts. He had 40. I had Devon Achane more than 18.5 rushing yards in his first 5 attempts. He had 21 rushing yards in his first 5 attempts. And then I had Ricky Pearsall more than 20.5 receiving yards. He had 37. He had 21 on his first catch. And then to fill out my 5-player lineup, I have Nikola Jokic more than half a point on Christmas Day. So in a few days, Nikola Jokic, when he scores his first bucket against the Phoenix Suns, which I imagine he will, I will get 4 out of 5 correct, and I'll get a little money back from Prize Picks. Pick 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their stat projections, and then you can win up to 100 times your money on just 4 correct picks. We love Prize Picks, and I'm on my way to a 4 out of 5 with this week's lineup.
What's your multiplier if you get 4 out of 5?
If I get 4 out of 5, stand by. I double up my money.
Okay.
If I get that 4 out of 5. So need Jokic to get me a bucket.
Money won is better than money earned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if the Nuggets can just open with a play set for Jokic, like just get him involved early. Let the big man touch the ball. Maybe let him score one. I think that's a good way to to go about it.
Yeah, just shoot a DM to Mike Malone. Tell him.
Hey, not sure if you've
Joker going.
Not sure if you guys have thought about getting Jokic the basketball.
Yeah, just kind of open things up a little bit for his teammates.
Let Christian Brown cook.
Man.
Anyways, shout out to Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code Candlestick. $50 instantly on your first $5 lineup. Okay.
Yeah. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please like all of our videes. Drop
Every single one.
Comments and enter the discourse. Participate in the discourse. If you agree with if some of the things we say, tell us what you agree with. If you hate some of the things we say,
don't tell us.
Tell us nicely, or at least if you're going to be mean about it, just give us a thumbs up to make up for your disposition.
If you're going to be mean about it, make it funny.
Yeah, we really should just try to market ourselves as like the reasonable, level-headed 49ers take machine.
Hey, what's up? You need some lukewarm 49ers takes? Lock in Candlestick Chronicles. Wherever you get your podcasts.
Fair and balanced, we got fair and balanced.
Oh, well, okay.
We a lot of I guess polarizing takes out on the Niners internet landscape lately.
Yeah.
So
can't wait for the offseason. Should be a fun one.
Yep.
Actually, That's not true. Can't wait for Monday against the Lions. See where the 49ers stack up with the NFC's best. Little measuring stick game.
We'll see. Radar game, I like to call it. See where they're at. All right. We'll talk to you guys later in the week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. 5-star reviews wherever you listen to our podcast. Go to Cooperage, the new tap room. Cooperage Brewing tap room on Ross Street, downtown Santa Rosa. Looks like an amazing spot. I'm going to try to go over there New Year's Day potentially. Check out nice. Ohio State, Oregon. Shout out to the Buckeyes of the State School in Columbus, in Ohio, for beating Tennessee. That Michigan game, turns out it didn't even matter. What a way to troll Michigan and prove that Michigan doesn't matter at all by losing to them, only to prove that the game had no meaning because Michigan stinks. So shout out to Ohio State. Great troll job by them. And we'll see you guys later.
Play.